Absolutely. Thank you very much. Here's Chris checking in on the line from New Jersey. Yes, hello, Chris.
Hello, Bob. Yeah, the lies continue from this bunch, Bob. A week ago, we had Jason, O.J.'s son, reading a statement that O.J. needed time to grieve. The very next night, he's on Larry King frantically defending himself about Marcia Clark.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
As you said, yet to visit the grave.
No, he didn't. Why should he? Unless he wanted to make sure she didn't get out of that, because he put her in there. And if anybody thinks otherwise, then that person is a loony.
Yeah, it's sickening, Bob. And then Kardashian gets on Larry King Friday night, denies any knowledge of the deal with Star Magazine.
Yeah, he denies any knowledge, just like he denied that he got rid of the blood-soaked clothes that O.J. was wearing.
The butcher of Brentwood, Bob. You're right again.
Yep. And I kept saying, he's going to walk, he's going to walk, he's going to walk. I remember I had a guy said, you should apologize because you said he was going to walk. Where's that guy now?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Where are all the Gavones?
Thank you, Chris.
Bye.
Author of Helter Skelter, the book he wrote after he successfully prosecuted the Charlie Manson bunch. And I must tell you, I saw you last night with Geraldo. You were magnificent. And I said to myself, I wish he were interviewing the butcher of Brentwood rather than Tom Brokaw and Katie Couric. I'll bet you wish you were, too.
Well, Bob, I think you heard me what I said last night. I'm almost too disgusted to talk about this case. I've never been so outraged over a verdict. There can be no question, and let's underline and italicize the word no, there cannot be any question about this man's guilt. And yet he walks out of the courtroom with a smile on his face, a free man, has this big party. I'm sure he's going to be playing golf and tennis in a couple days. And two precious human beings who were murdered by him are decomposing in their graves. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible miscarriage of justice, one of the darkest days ever for American justice. And one of the things that makes it even worse, of course, the murders are ultimately what's the worst here, but Simpson himself, the incredible audacity of this man to act like he's the one that's been put out. He's putting pressure on the LAPD to go find the true killer. Doesn't he have a mirror in the house? It's just unbelievable. He's elevated audacity to symphonic and operatic levels. Where do you get the guts to do something like this? Where do you buy the guts? Bob, I haven't seen guts like this in storefront windows here in L.A. Do they sell guts like this back east?
No, I have never seen anything like it. But, Faye Resnick said that Nicole told her that he would one day kill her and go on with his life as though nothing had happened.
Yeah. Well, this verdict is attributable to two things. Number one, a terrible, terrible jury. This jury was extremely biased against the prosecution and looked upon the defendant very favorably from the very beginning. They were only out for about 3 hours, so they were not deliberating at all. It was 75% black. I'm not anti-black at all, but this was not a representative jury. Going in, they had a sympathy for the defendant here. Garcetti made a terrible mistake in filing this case downtown. It should have been handled in the judicial district where it happened. Brentwood is in the Santa Monica Judicial District. That's where it should have been filed. So we had a bad jury. But I have to say this, and it hurts me to say it because, I'm 100% pro-prosecution. These are good people. They were fighting for justice. I was proud of the ethical and professional way that they conducted themselves. I sent them a telegram in the morning of the summation trying to pump them up. But they did not do a good job. They did prove his guilt beyond all doubt. They put his blood, by the testimony of DNA, by the testimony of experts after DNA, his blood was put at the murder scene. And when your blood's at the murder scene, Bob, that's really the end of the ballgame. You cannot be innocent and have your blood at the murder scene. Unless Simpson wanted to testify, of course, that he committed these murders in self-defense. I'm just being sarcastic now. So they did prove his guilt beyond all doubt. His blood was found at the murder scene, the victim's blood inside his car and home. That's really the end of the ballgame. But along the way, the DA made some terrible, terrible blunders. They didn't introduce a tremendous amount of incriminating evidence against him. And the summations, they showed no art of argumentation. They showed that they did not know how to argue. They were not forceful. They didn't draw powerful inferences. When you give that summation, Bob, it's got to be so powerful. Your logic has to be so powerful that the jury feels it has no choice but to convict. And I got no sense of that listening to these two prosecutors. Furthermore, they didn't put in the time. Darden was wandering discursively all over the ballpark. He was discussing issues that they weren't connected with each other at all, which told me that the argument was not organized or structured. I don't know how much time he put into it, but he could not have put a lot of time into it. Marcia Clark, I'd be surprised if she put 25, 30 hours into it. A case like this, you got to put 400, 500, 600 hours of preparation into that summation, so that it's so powerful and so organized that even this jury right here, you know, you put a bib on them and you spoon feed them, even this jury should have come back with a verdict of guilty. So we got a bad jury, and the prosecution did not do a good job.
Well, you said last night, and I don't know why Geraldo seemed reticent to even appear that he was agreeing with you. Did you notice, or of course you weren't in the same studio, but I don't know, I just had that feeling that he was playing a very distant role with you.
Yeah.
Did you get that feeling?
When you're on television, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you're being interviewed, the interviewer can see the interviewee. Geraldo could see me. I could not see him. All I'm looking into is a little red light. Of course, I could hear his voice, but I could not see his face or his body language or anything like that. So if you pick that up, you're in a better position to pick that up than I am. But I think Geraldo agrees that this should have been a guilty verdict.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt he agrees it should have been a guilty verdict.
Right.
I was a little, I don't know, I must confess, annoyed that he made it a point to tell the audience that they were going to hear the other side tonight. How could there be another side, really?
There is no other side here. Bob, you could have 100 eyewitnesses and it wouldn't be as strong as this case here because, I'll tell you why. There are many, many, many more lookalikes in this world than two people that have the same DNA. No two people yet, other than identical twins, have been found to have the same DNA. I walked into a Century City office building about a week ago, and I saw a fellow sitting at a desk, and I said, "You're Manny Pedrano." Manny Pedrano, I think that's his name. He's a commentator for the SIMPSON case here in L.A. on Channel 4. This guy looked identical to him. And he says, "Yeah, everyone tells me I'm Manny Pedrano." What I'm telling you is that there are more lookalikes in this world than there are people with the same DNA. You cannot have your blood at the murder scene and be innocent. It's the end of the ball game. And his blood was not only found at the murder scene, but as you know, right to the left of bloody shoe prints leaving the scene of the crime. And of course, that shows that the assailant cut himself on the left side of his body, and as you know, he cut his left middle finger that night. And when the police asked him, "How did you get that cut?" the morning after the murders, he said, "I don't know." And they asked him again, and he said, "I have no idea, man." I don't know where the media got this notion about his saying that he cut himself on the cellular phone. That is not in that tape. I've heard the entire 32-minute audio. It's not in there. He said, "I don't know the first time. The second time, I have no idea." But 2 points have to be made here. What is the statistical improbability of Simpson innocently, as he claims, cutting himself around the very precise same time that his former wife and male companion are brutally murdered? It's got to be 1 out of a couple 100 million, or 1 out of 100,000 at least. And that's what he's claiming, essentially. And then he goes further, of course, by saying that he didn't know he was bleeding. He found out later that he was bleeding. And he didn't know how he got the cut. Well, you know, when you cut yourself badly on your left middle finger or any part of your body, normally you know how you got that cut, and you stop the flow of blood with your hand or handkerchief, and you put on a bandage. You don't bleed all over the place, unless you're in a frantic, frenzied state, as he obviously was in. The second point is that the DA did not introduce that tape. The jury never heard about it. You give me a yellow pad and 100 hours, and I'll convict them on that tape alone. They didn't introduce that tape. The jury never heard it. And I, like I said last night, this was several hours before they withdrew blood from his arm and would have had any opportunity to sprinkle or plant it, which we know did not happen. That's pure, unadulterated moonshine. It never happened. But the point is, he had blood all over his car and home and in the driveway, long before, 17 hours before, they withdrew blood from his arm and had any opportunity to sprinkle it. That didn't come out at this trial.
This is a travesty. I think we've never seen anything like it. Adding to our revulsion was the reaction of so many blacks they showed on television at Howard University and other places.
All right.
Where do we go from here? I'm asking you to step out of your role as a prosecutor, as a lawyer, but as a citizen. Where do we go from here? We're going to see him as Paul Callan, an attorney here, and Bruce Smurdy, another attorney. You may be familiar with them.
No.
They had said they are afraid this is going to be the beginning of his attempt to rehabilitate himself. How in heaven's name could a person so obviously guilty rehabilitate himself?
Well, we're going to have to wait to see what happens. His guilt here was so obvious that this may be a situation where he may not be able to rehabilitate himself. Let's hope that the American people do not forget this case or his guilt and boycott or what have you, anything that this fellow's associated with. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I think it's speculative at this point. I'm very hopeful that the American people are not going to forget. I know that the memory of most people is about as permanent as a breath upon a mirror. But this case received so much publicity, and his guilt is so obvious that this may be an exception. He's certainly perceived today by the vast majority of American people as being guilty. And that's one reason why I speak out now and then. I mean, I've had, this is not to boast or anything, but I've had, hundreds upon hundreds of requests. I go on radio or TV very, very infrequently, and the only motivation that I really have to go on, I don't want to see my mug on TV or hear my voice on the radio because I don't have a good voice. The only motivation I have is just, to remind people that this was a terrible, terrible, terrible miscarriage of justice. That's the only motivation I have. So I don't know how many people are listening to this show, but hopefully they'll be among the people that will not forget what this man did and will not permit him to rehabilitate himself into our society. Can you imagine they're celebrating and drinking cocktails and beer and wine, and I'm sure they were saying, "OJ, we did it, old buddy, I'll see you tomorrow on the golf course." And there's two people in their graves decomposing. There's a certain obscenity to it. If there's a parallel, this is a type of pornography, as it were.
Yep, absolutely. I appreciate you taking this time out and speaking with us. One final question: would you be watching the so-called interview?
Well, there's so many people that are calling me that want me to comment on it. I may be forced to. Normally I would not, but I know that there's going to be 60, 70, 80 calls, and it's hard to turn everyone down. It's very, very hard, particularly when people call you and they've known you for years in the media. So I don't know if I have a choice. I'm disgusted by it.
Well, I tell you what, you made an error right there because of what you just said. I'll be calling you too to get your critique.
Well, anyway, Bob, I enjoyed talking to you, and I just hope the folks listening to this are not going to forget what this guy did, because there's no question that he committed these murders.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
I know in some sense this is water under the bridge, but it's still interesting to look at how his face changed when it sunk in what the verdict was. And his reaction...
Yeah, well, he's that type of guy. I mean, he shows no emotion.
No, what I was seeing was his reaction was that of a person who was expecting a guilty verdict, and he was just totally taken aback by it.
And then you and I were looking at two different Kardashians, because his reaction to me was a non-reaction. He didn't change one bit.
Well, the first
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. There's no point in you saying, well, no, I thought he looked different. And I'll say, well, no, he looked like he... I'm sure our audience remembers Kardashian. He didn't look up. He didn't smile. Nothing. Just like a great stone face. Matt, do you agree or disagree, or didn't you notice?
Well, I agree, personally.
By the way, be aware of this name Alex, because he did call earlier in the week.
Who did?
The lying fink. He called her.
I beg your pardon? Hello? I don't know what this guy was saying, but apparently it wasn't important. Otherwise, he would have stayed on the line. Ken, you're on WABC. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Bob. How are you?
What's on your mind, sir?
I am very disappointed that you have not called for a boycott of this media manipulation for tomorrow night.
Why, do you think it would make a difference?
Well, I do. I think
You think if I told people don't watch it, they wouldn't watch it?
Well, I think if you appeal to the fact that we will be watching, as Mr. Bugliosi suggested, pornography, we'll be watching a bunch of lies that we know what to expect. I think that, and I suggested this to Dick Williams earlier today, and the fact is that I think that if we call for people to look into their hearts, make the vote for justice, make the vote not to watch this particular abomination, and we can vote for.
All right, Ken, I take it you won't be watching that.